A really cool part of Lab 3 is structure from motion. When we take a set of images that we've taken at the stream and use them to create a 3D point cloud using this tool, Agisoft. And in this video, I'm not going to explain structure from motion. I saved that for a different space. But here I'm going to walk through the process for using Agisoft to generate a 3D point cloud, then a wire mesh frame that shows off the surface of that 3D point cloud, a textured model of that wire mesh surface, and then finally a digital elevation model. All of these are different renderings of the data that we're creating using imagery. Now in this video I'm going to walk through the steps for using Agisoft for this process, and that most of this is driven by the workflow model. So I'm going to add photos and then use different tools in workflow, but first we're going to just set a couple settings under Tools Preferences. Here, more important than anything, I'm going to make sure that I've got my GPU on. And then under Advanced, I want to make sure that I have VBO support enabled. A lot of this other stuff has to do with stripping data from the images, sort of presupposing that we're getting our images off a drone, but we're not. We made them ourselves with handheld cameras. So if those settings are all ready to go, I'm going to hit OK. The next step is to add photos, and so I'm going to navigate to a folder where I've got a bunch of images from Reach 5, and I am reading them in. Looks like about 90 pictures, which isn't a huge number of pictures, but you can see here they are, 90 pictures, and none of them are aligned. So first thing I'm going to do is go to Workflow and say Align Photos. Because I'm doing this to show y'all, I'm going to make mine a little bit more detailed than you might want to make yours, but I recommend these settings. You can do it at medium accuracy. I recommend high or highest, but that takes a lot longer. I'm going to hit pause while it happens, so I don't have to worry about that, and neither do you. When it's done processing, what you should see is a sparse point cloud that looks, I don't know, like a creek, like the portion of the stream that you actually took pictures of. Bend in the stream, so you can kind of see that. This is the forked tree. This bucket right here is right at 5L, or stake 5L. Now the first couple things I'm going to do is just first, by rotating these lines, you see there are 3 lines on this, and if I drag any of those lines, I can turn it along whatever axis those lines represent. It's an easy way of moving this object around, and the first thing I want to do is make sure that the entire reach is inside this gray bounding box. It looks like it is. If it weren't, I could go up to this location and resize the region, click on these tabs and move them around to make the region either smaller or larger to make sure that the entire area is contained within that bounding box. Basically, I'm setting the parameters of the point cloud that I ultimately will derive. The next thing I'm going to do is, you'll notice down here at the bottom I have both a workspace tab and a reference tab. I'm going to click on reference, and on the far right hand side of that I'm going to set the coordinates for this project. Click down here on more, and then I'm going to enter 2248, which is the EPSG code for Maryland State Plane using the NAD83 datum. So you'll see that that is the datum, same coordinate reference system that we've been using and will continue to use this semester. And basically what this means is I'm telling it the numbers that I use when I use numbers are being measured in state plane coordinates. Which numbers? Well, the next thing I'm going to do is read in a file, and this is the file that's contained within your Lab 3 data file. So it's zipped up and available to you to download. And there's a file within that called control point stake locations.txt. That is the point locations in state plane coordinates. Easting is longitude, northing is latitude, altitude is altitude, and so I'm telling it the latitude, longitude, and altitude of the point where the wooden stakes where we measured the stream meet the ground. So there's some error in there, no doubt, but I've got a pretty precise fix on all of these. You'll get a prompt that says add a new marker, and you say yes, and you'll see that all of those stakes are now being recognized by the program. So I know, in other words, these 22 locations. Now what I'm going to do is try to find those locations in the pictures. So I'm going to start looking at these pictures, and I'm going to start adding information about them. There are different things you can do to look at these pictures. I can change the view, I can make it large, and I think that's kind of helpful because when I'm looking at the large thumbnails, I can see where I'm able to view stakes in the images. Now you notice here I'm looking at the stake locations for location 5L. How do I know that? A blue stripe is 4, and each pink stripe is 1. So I've got a blue stripe and a pink stripe, that's 5. A green stripe on the bottom means left bank. Over here I've got CTRL, that control stake. And also in this picture I can make out location 4L, and if I really wanted to, I think I could find 3L. That I think is 3L right there. There's 3R, and over here is 4R. Is that right? Actually, I think this is 5R. Yeah, it's 5R because it's got a stripe at the top. Now, the idea here is what I'm going to do is tell the program what I know. So this is location 5L. I'm going to right-click on it and place a marker there. So now basically what I've told the program is that that point in that picture has this coordinate reference. I know the latitude, longitude, and the elevation. I'm going to try to do the same for as many stakes as I can. This one, if you zoom in, you can kind of tell this isn't where it meets the ground. I'm going to kind of estimate where it meets the ground and call this 5R. Now, as I do this, I'm mostly focused. I'm interested in finding the stakes in the images that I can see that identify the 4 stake locations that define my reach. In this case, I'm looking at reach 5, so I want 5R, 5L, 6R, 6L. If I can find pictures with 4 and 7, the stakes that are immediately adjacent to my reach, that's helpful too. But I don't really need to find, it is in fact kind of confuses the program if I find a lot more than that. So for example, this is 0.4L, and I'm just going to guess where that meets the ground and place a marker there. And I can't actually see, I don't think, unless I zoom in, I'm missing something, but I can't see stake 4R in this image, so I'm going to leave it alone. But I found 3 of the stakes that are kind of either within or adjacent to the reach I'm interested in. So now I'm going to move to the next picture. And you'll see here it's already guessing where 5R should be. I can't quite see 5R. I think it's behind this person. So I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to leave this picture alone for now, just because I don't see any stakes in it. So now I'm going to go back to this picture, and hey, there's 5L again, and you can see the program's already guessing. Not quite accurately, but pretty accurately. I'm going to zoom in so that I can really see that point where it meets the ground and place marker 5L there. That's the only one I can see for now, and so I'm going to leave it alone at that point. Now look at my pictures down here. I see white flags on several of them. That means that on the basis of the minimal information I've fed in so far, Agisoft is already willing to make a guess. And it's guessing in this picture the locations of several of these markers. You see, it's not quite sure about 5R and 4L, but it thinks it knows where they should be. And it's pretty positive, and it's not that bad with 5L. Now what I'm going to do is just move 5L a little bit, and when I do, notice it turns green, meaning I have confirmed that location. I've given it basically a star for guessing right. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to guess, I can't quite see where this meets the ground, but I'm going to suppose it's about there, and I'm going to place marker 4L there. And that's going to make Agisoft really happy, because it's going to know where to place 4R or 4L next time. I'm also going to place marker 5R, because I can see it too, and I'm kind of imagining that being down here underneath the grass a little bit. I really want to try to nail the location where it meets the ground. Notice I could also pinpoint the location of CTRL in these images, and I may as well go ahead and do that, because there it is. And that's a pretty well-referenced image. On the basis of that, you'll see Agisoft is making more guesses. And so what I'm going to do is run through the first couple rows of pictures and either find locations or confirm locations. This one doesn't have any in it, so I'm going to come back to it later. This one is guessing about location 5L, and it's guessing correctly. So there, I've confirmed that guess. And let's see what about this one. It's got lots of things to say about this one. It's making a guess about 5L again and doing a pretty good job. It's guessed a location for the CTRL control location, and I'm going to place that one. And then it's made a really good guess with stake 4L. And I still don't see 4R, but I think that's it, isn't it? I can place that eventually. And this is definitely 3R off in the distance. It thinks it knows where 5R should be, and in fact it's kind of right because this stake has actually been removed. These guys are taking down the course before they were done taking pictures, unfortunately. But I'm just going to, either I could have left that one alone, just leave that guess hanging, or in this case, I'm confirming it. So you can see I've kind of made my way through the first row of images, and in this case, it's guessing about 5R because that stake is already gone. I think I'll just let that guess hang there, let it think it knows where it is. And I'm going to work through these images, just going to scroll through these images and look for a slightly different vantage point. So here is the end of reach 5 at stake. Remember, blue is 4, each pink is 2, so this is 6R. I'll place a marker there. If I don't see it, I just click on the ellipsis and it'll show up in the resulting list. And I can also see 6L in this picture. I'm going to place that. And if I can find them, I would also place 7, because remember the reach 7 is adjacent to the reach I'm looking at right now. But I don't see those. I think this is 7L right here, but I'm not sure. I'm going to leave it alone in these images. And hopefully I can find it in another picture. So you can see because I've made this guess, it's already guessing here that this is point 6R. It thinks 5R is over there somewhere, but I'm just going to let that guess be wrong. I'm going to insert marker 6R. And while I'm at it here, I'll look and see if I can see marker 7. But in all that thicket, I really don't. I think marker 6R is the only one I can place in this image. And here's marker 6L again. And you can see that Agisoft's already kind of guessing about this one after one single point. And that's the only marker I see. In this picture, I can see 6R again, and it's really nailing it now. I'm just going to confirm that. And then I'll go up a little bit and see if I can't catch a different view of these locations. Now the idea is, I'm going to go through all these pictures and look for the markers that I know about. So I'll look for markers 5 and 6 especially, and then I'll also be looking for markers 4, markers 7. This group's images really aren't very good. And so at the end of the day, I've looked through most of these pictures, and you can see in a lot of them the markers are actually gone. Like right here's a picture of somebody removing a marker as this group's working. So you can see cleanup was happening before this group was ready to roll. Looks like marker 4L is still there. So I'm going to exploit the information that I have, but the marker 5 on the right bank's gone. What I'll do is work my way through these images and mark all the markers that I can. So at this point I've run through all the images, and I'd have to say the quality of the images I'm working with is hopefully lower than yours.